You know, the more I hear about this whole um, a Fauci business with his emails, where he tried to hide from the public that he may have known that this virus, which has caused so much shit in this world, that he may have known that this thing came from a lab. I get pretty pissed off. I think that this is one of the worst crimes to have ever come to the modern world. This thing that Anthony Fauci has done. This man right here, Mr. Well, I don't have the engineer here, but I'm going to put up this face. And when you look at this face, people, I want you to feel anger. I want you to feel hatred. I want you to think of blood running through this man's eyeballs. This man, Anthony Fauci, needs to be hanged and lynched and have his body burnt, his dead corpse burnt. Now, I'm not saying that you all should go out and do this. I think there needs to be a trial. And if found guilty, Anthony Fauci's punishment should be death by first lynching, in the same way they lynched Jesus before they crucified him. And then he needs to be hanged by a tree. And then when he's dead, his rotting, stinking corpse, which will burn in hell, has died. It should be burnt. The physical body should be burnt. Now, I know that won't happen, but I'll tell you, in my world, that's what the punishment will be. And not only Anthony Fauci, but those scientists who work at that Wuhan lab where this thing allegedly escaped from, every single one of those scientists should be lined up, tied to a pole, lynched like there's no tomorrow, have every piece of skin torn off of their body with a rope with thorns attached to it, beaten from dawn until dusk, whipped until every piece of skin is torn off, and the only thing you see is bare fat. Then you douse that in salt and alcohol and vinegar, and then march them to the highest tree in Wuhan and hang their sorry asses, and then burn their corpses and pray that God burns their sorry asses in hell. And you can say that I'm overreacting. I don't give a fuck if you think that. You can go burn in hell too if you think that. But this virus is the worst crime to have hit the modern world. And the fact that Anthony Fauci may have known about this, but he wanted to hide it, as these emails are alleging. These new emails which are coming out say that Fauci, this piece of shit, and I don't give a damn. YouTube can get rid of YouTube can get rid of this useless channel if it wants to. Subscribe to me on Bitchute. I said it. Dr. Fauci is a piece of shit. Now come do something, YouTube. I said it. Anthony Fauci is a piece of shit who needs to be hanged from a tree. And I think somebody should burn an effigy of him. Someone should burn an effigy of him. Oh, you better pray that he doesn't come near me. Because the thing that this virus has done to my life, never mind your lives and the world, and this pig knew that this thing may have come from a lab, and he wanted to hide it from people. And meanwhile, your Facebook accounts and my Facebook accounts were taken down because we dared to speak out about this, that it may have been from a lab. And I didn't say that it was for sure. I said it may have been from a lab, but it really doesn't matter where it's from. The fact of the matter is that these dog-ass politicians, Justin the Tech and Mac Daddy Trudeau, Doug, who should have died instead of his brother Ford, Boris Johnson, Joe Biden, Camelback ain't Black Harris. All these politicians are using this crisis to empower themselves, and you got these slave-ass business people who need to be boycotted. I pray that any business owner who is going along with this thing, I don't care if you're small or big, if you're going along with this thing and you're harassing people about masks and social distancing, I pray that your business goes out of business. I pray it goes out of business. I pray you and your family and your children's children starve for the rest of your days, because this virus has really destroyed the world, and this thing may have come out of a lab, and China is able to get away with this, specifically Wuhan. So in Arana Nation's world, Anthony Fauci would be arrested tonight. He'd be arrested. He'd be jostled out of his bed. He'd have handcuffs clapped on his hands, tied behind his back. He'd be removed from his house, raided at the dead of night, just like how y'all remember Alien Gonzalez. I don't know if y'all remember. This was way back in the day. I was like probably maybe 8 or 9 when that whole thing happened. Alien Gonzalez, when he was this was a Cuban boy living in Miami. His mother brought him to America, in a lifeboat in Iraq. I think it was even worse than a lifeboat. And he moved to Miami, and his mom must have died on the trip, and then he was with his mother's relatives, and the Cuban government and his father wanted him back. I mean, look, if the father wants him back, that's his father. I mean, you can't blame the father. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that. Bottom line is, what happened is alcohol, tobacco, and firearm raided that house, and they took him. And they brought him, but he's living in Cuba now. But that's what I do with Anthony Fauci. I would get the SWAT team on him. It would be an Osama bin Laden style raid. We would burst into his house right now at 12:51 a.m. at night. We would take him. We would send him to a government facility. He would stand trial. And if it's true that he had information about this whole virus escaping a lab, he'd be found guilty, and his punishment would be death by hanging. But first, he'd have to be lynched. As for those Chinese Wuhan lab scientists who work at that lab where this virus may have escaped from, I'd send SEAL Team 6 into China. I don't care what China does. Let them do something. Let them do something. I would send them, or better yet, I would do a covert style operation. They'd be kidnapped, basically, by the SEALs. Each of their houses, they'd be taken out, and they'd stand trial, found guilty, and you'd hang them. That's my world. And if China does something, well, we have nukes. I mean, if they want to really start a nuclear war over those dog scientists who let this virus out and cause all this trouble in the world, let them. And when all of those evildoers are hanged and their bodies are burned, I would pardon everybody from Kevin J. Johnston down to Adam Skelly, down to anybody who was persecuted by this virus, which kills less than 1% of people, who've had their lives destroyed. They'd all be pardoned, and they'd receive reparations too. Every single one of them would receive reparations. And I would try to identify anybody who went along with this, and they'd have to be taxed. They'd be fined. You'd be fined. All the businesses, all the police officers that went along with it, you'd be fined. You'd all be fined. And all that money would go to the people who have been persecuted by it. That is my harsh way of dealing with this. You all can tell I'm pretty angry right now. I don't want to get too off topic, but the fact that Anthony Fauci, this so-called doctor, who, by the way, is not, I don't think he should be qualified to be a doctor. He screwed up with the whole AIDS crisis business. I mean, look into this guy. Screwed up on the whole AIDS thing, made the whole thing worse. And now he's the head doctor in America. He should be stripped of his, at the very least, he should be stripped of his doctor's title. He should get his PhD removed. But if I was running things, his fate would be a lot worse. When you hide the truth about this virus, wrecking people's lives and their civil liberties and allowing big tech to run roughshod over everybody, and then you have these scientists who allow this thing to escape from their lab in the first place and cause all this mayhem, you better believe I'm pretty pissed. And I'll tell you, I'm not advocating violence, but I'll tell you. Number one, it's taking everything I've got not to hurt somebody right now. And number two, you know how they're now trying to push this whole vaccine thing? Any day that thing becomes mandatory, I will advocate violence. I'm telling you that right now. Any restaurant owner, first of all, I'll tell you this. Grocery stores, those are essential. If you encounter a grocery store which is making it mandatory to get vaccinated before you go shopping, I advocate violence on that entire marketplace. Violence on the employees, violence on the store owners. That's where I'll call for violence. You need groceries to eat, and if they're going to deny you that because you don't want to put a foreign entity in your body, I am calling for violence. Violence, I'm serious, physical violence. Burn down that entire grocery store. I'm telling you, you all know I'm not a kidder. Remember when I said I'm willing to go to jail for this whole thing? I've done it. I'm not advocating violence yet, but the day this whole vaccine thing becomes mandatory, I will, as God is my witness, be advocating violence. There will be blood in the streets. I'm telling you, blood will flow in the drains. People's heads will be decapitated in the middle of the night. I'm telling you, I can do that. I can do that. I can get people to do that. And it can be done. So let's see how far these guys want this to go. Bottom line is Dr. Fauci should get his doctor's title removed. In one way or another, China needs to be punished. At the same time, this virus really is still not a big thing. It kills less than 1% of people, though the fact that it may have come out of a laboratory is, and this tiny little virus that came out of this laboratory has caused so much trouble. Somebody needs to be punished. And I think somebody needs to lose their life over it after a trial. I'm not saying to hunt people down and kill them, but someone needs to lose their life over this. They need to be a trial. They need to be found guilty. And the punishment needs to be death. It needs to be death, hanging, or lose your life. This thing has caused so much trouble, someone's life needs to be taken from them. And finally, I say this, if vaccines become mandatory, I am advocating violence. And I'm specifically talking about Canada, because I don't think America is going to allow such a thing to happen. But you Canucks who've been allowing this to happen for so long, y'all want to keep up this whole being meek and mild business? I'll give you something to be meek and mild over. I'll give it to you. Y'all don't want to. Y'all don't want to let them. Y'all don't want to stop the neuro. Hey, I'll wake you up. If you don't want to wake up, I'll wake you up. Mandatory vaccines. This country is going to hell if I have something to do with it. If y'all decide to allow these people to get mandatory vaccines, and the only way you're going to stop me is if you kill me, because even in jail, I'll fuck shit up. This is